Hello and welcome to Connect, the weekly podcast of the California MBA, featuring one-on-one interviews with movers and shakers in the mortgage industry. I'm Susan Milazzo, CEO of the California MBA. I'm happy that you could join us on today's episode, and welcome to 2025. Before we welcome today's guests, I'd like to thank our 2025 President's Council sponsors. And these are companies that provide a tremendous amount of financial support to the California MBA, in large part so that we can continue to be that strong voice for the real estate finance industry before the California State Legislature and our regulators. So please join me in thanking our 2025 President's Council sponsors. And those companies are AmeriHome, Arch MI, Guild Mortgage, Rocket Mortgage, Wiener Brodsky Kiter, and Western Alliance Bank. Thank you all so much for your support this year. We really appreciate it. And with that turns to today's guest. I'm very happy to be welcoming Leslie Winick, who is Chief Strategy Officer at MCT Mortgage Capital Trading. Leslie, welcome.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Just seems like it was yesterday that you and I were chatting in Denver at the MBA convention. So I'm happy that this worked out, that you could join us on the Connect podcast.
So happy.
Always like to start with a little background. So why don't you tell our listeners how you got into the mortgage business?
So here we are at the start of 25. How did I fall into mortgage? I'm one of those people who somewhat fell into mortgage. Right out of college, I was lucky enough to get a job at JP Morgan on Wall Street. And I started in a training program that was a management consulting program. But soon after, you had to find a home a year later within the bank, and I landed in fixed income research. So I was a credit analyst, and part of my domain of research were the GSEs. So I fell into mortgage that way, Fannie, Freddie, Ginnie, all of that. And after a few, and also sovereign government. So I wrote research all about governments and what happened and I know you have a political background, so it's another commonality with you and I. But I wrote research pieces, and after a few years, it just wasn't my calling, wasn't my career calling. It didn't bring out all of what I felt I could do from my head and my heart. So I actually got into management consulting, and that was a lovely fit. And for 25 years, a management consulting career, working in a bunch of different sectors, not just financial services, and all over the world. But in 2016, at the end of 2016, a lovely company called the MCT came across my screen, and we started working together. And then honestly, it was just such a brilliant fit for both of us that in 2019, I was asked to take on the CSO role, and it's been a gift. So you can have lots of different journeys to get into mortgage. We talk about that a lot, right, Susan?
Yes.
And mine was a bit circuitous, but I love that you can leverage past experience in our industry as well. It's like whether I've worked in biotech, agriculture, software development, just so many different railroading, so many different industries. But when you really think about how to strategize about a business and what makes it successful and how do you attract and retain clients and how do you motivate team members, there's so many lessons from other industries. And ours is a fantastically dynamic one, and one that requires a lot of strategy and a lot of tactics to implement them. So it's just been a perfect fit.
Sounds like it. I love the folks at MCT. So it's been great getting to know you. Anybody at MCT that I've gotten to work with has always been a real pleasure. You have, just because you've had a very diverse background, a lot of different industries that you've worked in, you've an interesting career in the mortgage industry. What's your outlook for 2025?
Yeah, I mean, 2025, let's talk about some of the key trends or the buzzwords. We'll start with volume. Fannie Mae and MBA are thinking about 20% increase, right? Affordability still going to be a trend. It's an impact. I don't see that decreasing much. Climate change and the impact it has on insurance rates. I mean, Susan, you and I both sit in California. You and the CMBA have been lobbying fiercely about insurance. That's going to be a trend. Government change, this might be the year that government influence really does have a dramatic impact on our industry if there's a change in some leadership and some direction there. And M&A consolidation is going to continue. It's slowed down. It's for sure slowed down. But as that was that first wave, and now as our industry starts rolling and picking up again, you can imagine that these companies are going to want to consolidate and take advantage, right? Companies want to come in and buy someone on the low, not when the volume's back and they're succeeding. So M&A should continue. And I think the real key here is that realizing these are trends. And whether I just said 2025 or 2024, do you think any of those are going to change? They're not, right? Like they're trends. So it's not really what 2025 is going to bring us. It's how are we as business leaders and participants going to react to them and plan for them and be proactive against them? Because if you would have asked me 10 years ago, those would probably be other than the climate one, which has really increased in strength over the last 10 years, the repeated, like there's a fire or a hurricane is just happening a lot, right? Then the number of disasters in 24 was epic. Those are all trends that would have impacted our industry. So, how do I look at it? I say, let's pretend you and I are IMBs. Okay, let's just pretend. And we say, all right, all these trends are going to impact us. Now, what do they want to be as a business leader? They want to manufacture and sell loans profitably, right? That's their whole goal. That's a little bit inward looking. They want to be profitable. And so how are they going to attract and retain those customers based on all those trends that are out there, right? Are they going to do it on price? Are they going to do it on client experience, right? And by the way, you want to retain those clients because it's a lot easier to resell to a client you already have than to find a new one. So if I'm an IMB and I know that volume's still going to be lower and affordability is still going to be an issue, right? And there might be some people moving into different regions because they're worried about the weather or they've lost their home and they want to move to somewhere else in America, and I have a footprint there, right? If you're putting all these trends together, how are you going to win over their loyalty? That's what I would do. And once you create that strategy and figure out what your secret sauce is, then you start thinking about, okay, these are the things, these are the competencies that are core to my business. Then who am I going to partner with to round out the other ones that I don't have to do it in-house? I can do it, I need to do it, but I don't necessarily have to do it in-house. And I think that sometimes that's the part of our business that gets a little bit lost in the understanding of how, like you read a Crispin blog and you see all these names of different companies, and some people are not really sure how you put them together, right? Like, my POS, and then I need my pricing engine, and then I need my LOS, and then I've got my own team, and oh my goodness, how does it all come together? Well, take a step back and map it out and figure out what do you need to do, and then with whom do you need to partner to fill in the blanks. Strategically look at it that way. I think 25 is going to be a big year for companies to get it right that way because the technology is moving so quickly, and because of the consolidation, this is a really good year, and the volume coming back a little bit more. This is a really good year for you you as a business to differentiate, to cement your role in your markets, in your footprint, and show that you are one of the top lenders in your area. That would be my perspective from an IMB. And the same would be with a depository, except they have more regulations, and typically they fit into a larger enterprise that manages their business, right? In a bank, for example. So they have to comply in different ways with the bank's mandates. But an IMB has a lot of opportunity. It's 25 should be an exciting year for you. If you plot it out the right way.
I agree. I think that 25 is going to be a great time for IMBs, certainly in comparison to 23 and 24. And you're spot on with the market's going to shrink a little bit in the sense of mergers and acquisitions. You have this opportunity, and you've had time to plan it out. So we'll look forward to seeing what the year brings for all of our IMBs. In addition to your role at MCT, you're also co-founder and a board member for the Capital W Collective. Why don't you tell our listeners about that amazing organization?
And thank you for mentioning that. And first, I want to thank you and the CMBA for supporting us. You've been huge supporters since day one, and it really means a lot when you bring your strength and credibility to us. So thank you. Capital W Collective is a new nonprofit we launched in May of 2024. We were covert getting our nonprofit status for a little bit. And I also would like to thank the law firm Shepherd Mullen for all of their pro bono support in establishing us as a 501c3. But we have three goals: educate, elevate, and empower women and their allies in mortgage capital markets. Okay, educate, elevate, and empower. That's the first part. Then I said women and their allies. So that basically means all of us, all of us, everyone's invited, right? And then the third part is mortgage capital markets. So while there are other organizations in our industry that are targeting women and helping to elevate and empower them, including the MBA's Empower, we are really focused on capital markets, right? That typically is that black box, STEM oriented, heavy math driven area of the mortgage industry. And when we had this kernel of an idea, we actually went to your colleagues at the MBA and said, hey, we don't want to step on toes, and we certainly want to plug in where it makes sense and it's relevant. But is anyone looking at this? And your colleague said, Godspeed, this is awesome. No, please do this. So, like I said, we launched in May. I'm smiling because we just got verbal confirmation this Friday and again today that we've got 2 new Hallmark logos that we'll announce early in the new year that I'm very excited about. So
Excellent.
yeah, we've been doing a few things. Education's our hallmark. So we've stood up an education committee. We're creating content. We will have a educational series in Q1 around pricing. We're starting with pricing because that's at the start of the loan manufacturing process. So we're really developing educational content. You were kind enough to do an interview with us. We have a series called Take Fives on our website where we interview some wonderful people in the industry who have rich backgrounds and interesting paths. So Susan's will go live in the new year, and I can't wait to share that. We can't wait to share that with the world. And we're also building our infrastructure as we've just launched in May. So we just purchased a CRM system and an accounting package, and we're going to be developing our website further. And I'm really excited about something called a speakers bureau. I know this is a challenge for the CMBA and the MBA too, and it is for MCT. When we have conferences, we want to have a variety of speakers, especially when you're going to a lot of these conferences. And we're going to have a vetted bureau of very talented people. And it's be filterable, and you can find their backgrounds and their content expertise. But companies will know where to go to pull down that information and to have someone show up on their stage who is dynamic and engaging and wonderful. So that will be developed in the new year too, and I'm really excited about it. So come one, come all. My request is reach out to me on LinkedIn or reach out to me. Our emails are posted on capitalwcollective.org. Myself or any of the board members, we are asking for committee members, people who want to roll up their sleeves and lean in. We are asking for individual donors, and we are asking for corporate sponsors. These are all ways that you can immediately get involved in Capital W.
Excellent. And that's one thing I was going to ask you, how to get more involved. So you've answered the question. Go to CapitalWcollective.org. We also have the link in the description for this podcast, so you can find it easily there as well. And great organization. Good for you to start this. Big effort for the first 9 months of your nonprofit. So congratulations on getting that rolling, and you can make, 2025, we'll find new ways to partner with Capital W Collective as well. What can we all do just to support more women in the mortgage industry in general?
Well, I mean, there's so many ways. So let's have a dialogue about this. Like, I'd love to know what you're doing at the CMBA too. But I'd say first and foremost, visibility. Like if you know that someone on your team has done a great job, it doesn't matter their gender, but if someone's done a great job, elevate that person, shine a spotlight on them, right? I'm a strategist, but I firmly believe that the adage culture eats strategy for lunch. Like if you don't have the right company culture, you're not going to win. So elevating people, male or female, is a good way to start giving back. But men and women, it's just research, have different motivations, often have different motivations for how they give back to their companies. And women tend to be a little bit more amiable and wanting to please and don't self-advocate as much. So shining a light on them and encouraging them through mentorship, hugely important in your organization, through financial benefit. I mean, Salesforce was one of the brilliant companies who really shined a light on this a while ago. Mark Benioff said, "Hey, we're going to go through our entire HR roster and make sure that people in like roles are getting paid the same amount." And he went public on that. And then they did it again a few years later and found that there were discrepancies again and trued it up again. So this is not yeah, right? It's pretty amazing. This is something that all people in mortgage can do, like pay for like roles. It's legitimately true. And your team members don't know they're making different salaries for the same role, right?
Right.
So that's something you can do. So there's mentorship, there's financial benefit, and there's also understanding this is real, especially coming out of the pandemic and our age group, as you and I are millennials, but as even Gen Z comes online. I mean, we're Gen X. What am I saying? We're Gen X, not millennials. The sandwich generation, where women tend to take care of someone who's more senior in their family. They're younger kids and they're still working, right? This is very real. This is not a blip on the radar. What you
Right.
hope is that your team member is getting their work done and doing it well. Does it really matter what hours they're doing it? So giving women the flexibility to live
Flexibility.
their life, right?
Yeah.
To live their lives. And I always say this, you can never guess the day that person's having or understand what's going on at home unless they share it with you. So making sure that you're creating a culture that, allows them to share what's going on, and hopefully you can problem solve for some of those things that are happening at home. I'm sure many of these viewers at home know that medical issues happen, or, a kid got sick at school, or things like that that happen that are real, and people prioritize their families, and they should, but they can also be incredible team members. So we have to learn how to work in that dynamic and give women some grace about all the different hats they wear in a day.
And I would add that, if you are a woman, I can say I had shared with you kind of, my background as a single mom, and there were a lot of people that helped me. And we should be paying that forward. Find somebody else that is earlier in their career and mentor them, help offer advice, offer help, just an ear to listen to. So I think that's great advice, Leslie. Thank you so much. I know when we chatted a couple of months ago, we had referenced, you've shared you've worked in Europe, you've traveled the world for work, for just vacationing, and one of your favorite places in Europe is Ireland. And
Oh,
you
yeah.
and I had chatted about that. So what would be kind of like the top three things that you would say somebody is like a must see if they were traveling there for the first time?
Okay. I think this was our dialogue because you're excited about a trip to
I
Ireland.
know.
Um,
Yeah.
okay, so I would say I've been to Ireland 3 or 4 times, and actually I was lucky I got to work there early in the late 90s, getting Ireland ready for the Euro. Um, but so if drop down in Dublin, if you haven't been to Ireland, you drop down in Dublin. Okay, that's step one. But don't spend too much time there, because really the beauty and the charm of Ireland really comes out outside of the big city. So if you've been to Ireland before, flying to Shannon, flying to Cork, flying to somewhere else, you probably don't need to go back to Dublin because it's such a big country. Um, so I'd say that. Then you really want to see the western coast, which they call the Wild Atlantic Way. And it's beautiful and stunning cliffs. And you'll probably rent a car to get out there, but my recommendation is find a lovely guide because the cliffs are narrow and the roads are narrow, and you're driving on the left side of the road. And large tractors might come at you, or other farm animals. So but the Wild Atlantic Way, and it's very long and broad, and we had 10 days this last trip and didn't even cover all of it. So I love County Clarny. It's beautiful, and in it there's my favorite little town is this town called Dingle. It's a little, Dingle sounds like a little nubbin, and it is a little nubbin of a jewel in the Wild Atlantic Way. And my third recommendation, I haven't been yet. So this is what I would say, maybe Susan, you and I should do it together. The north of the Wild Atlantic Way is a town called Galway, and there's beautiful islands off of it, the coast called the Aran Islands. So that would be my third recommendation, Galway and the Aran Islands.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Definitely a trip that I look forward to one of these days. And Leslie, thank you for being on Connect. And really thank you for all you do to elevate women in the mortgage industry. It's greatly appreciated.
Oh, thanks for having me, Susan. And again, please check us out on CapitalWCollective.org. Or you can please follow us on LinkedIn. We have a very active LinkedIn presence. So Capital W is on LinkedIn. And I should say, as a personal bit to the industry, I really take my role as being a mentor via Capital W, via MCT seriously. So if there are younger people out there who are looking for career advice, or like an unbiased opinion, please reach out to me. I think we all need to be able to do that for one another to elevate, educate, and empower our entire industry.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you, Leslie, for being on Connect. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Susan. Thank you.
And thanks to all of you for joining us on today's episode. To access any of our past episodes, you can follow us on our YouTube channel. We're also available on SoundCloud, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. That's it for this week, and we'll see you next time on Connect.
Here we go.